He said, very private. I've never had crews within our home. It's a very safe space, but I have to or choose to believe that if James knew that doing this could help families and could help her their children and young adults who live with special needs, James would say done what he told him away. Even ask me. It's a no-brainer. James very silent baby, didn't cool. He didn't make any sounds at all. I just thought I'd hit the lottery, and I thought I have a chill child is not going to keep me up at night. He cry if he was obsessed, but more the crying was just a constant adaptations of the idea of sounds and encroaching language that a child go through the course of their natural evolution. And there was none of us, but I didn't know that at the time. It just as I said, authorities just a chill baby and anything butcher he can hear, but then he didn't. He just wasn't hitting benchmarks. He wasn't sitting up, he couldn't sit. Opiates set him up. Eve were done and fall over. He wasn't crawling, he couldn't stay open his legs at all, so we knew that something was up. Developmental delays. I think he was a year and a half old maybe when he was diagnosed. He talking to get really checked out, and because of certain things that he was displaying, he was diagnosed as having cerebral palsy, and it was at the time, I'd probably still is, but in less measure. It was a common misdiagnosis because it shared a lot of the same presentations, allow the same characteristics, and it wasn't until he was about 2.5 years old that another doctor, pediatric neurologist, spent a little bit of time with him and saw the James. One of the characteristics of range of and syndrome is outbreaks of laughter. They call it inappropriate outbreaks. Allowed to break. Senator is such a thing as an appropriate outbreak of laughter, for comes from a sincere place and it lacks malice. I've just see qualified a great you, so maybe there is, but the doctor saw the James laughing a lot in the office, and he was also doing this movement a lot with his hands. But this speed active drought just took a look at James and said, James, mom, has he been tested for agents in German? Jin Kim said, what's that? Very few people knew about it at the time, and the doctors that we let me just do genetic tests, a blood test, we can just do a genetic mapping, endless see, and came back positive. So at least we had one of the biggest things, obviously one of the biggest issues, and in one of the most significant at moments you can experience as a child who has developmental on disability or delay is getting a diagnosis. Cause then if you get a diagnosis you can zero in there. They're usually people you can find, whether it's a community just emotionally to lean into so you feel less alone in your struggles. Arm medical professionals who can actually, and physical therapists who can actually, and people who can have a specific and system with which they can present your child present to you and then help your child reach their potential. So getting the diagnosis, I remembered the first 2 questions I asked at the time were what's the life expectancy and how much pain is involved, and the doctor said life expectancy as far as we can tell is the same for you and for me, and in pain no, but it's a seizure condition. That was one of the big things, and it's one of the things that parents struggle with greatly, is that our children with and Germans have seizures. James had plenty of seizures back in the day, have been the back of ambulances, have been in the hospital when. I'm thankful he hasn't had one in 10 or 11 years, which is amazing. My God, James' first steps on. Never forget James' first steps 2 weeks short of his 4th birthday. To ensure this was birthday, and it was we're in the house we lived in at the time, and Deborah, who's amazing, was here yesterday. I mean James's team, as it's say they've been in his life for 18 years. They love him so much. Deborah came upstairs and I knew that they were working on walking, and she says, he said, James has something to show you, and she had go over there, and I stood over there and she hadn't, and she let him go to school. It was so profound. Yet was magic on the I'll never forget this, the face it, their determination on him as he just walked towards me and only took like 6 steps, and I burst into tears. Was amazing. He's just short of his 4th. Worth it, because a lot of parents are told you no, your child's probably not going to walk, and there are many children and young adults with the age of and syndrome who are wheelchair bound, and there are other children you see who run around as if there wasn't a single chromosome, no issue in their body at all, and James is somewhere kind of in the middle of that field. But yeah, that was if your first steps are always a significant thing that's spoken about a fat. Her or mother misses the first steps or pissed off for the rest of their lives. It's a really powerful benchmark for us by people creatures and to be told that he may never walk and see those first steps was just all. I'll never forget it. It was so overwhelmingly beautiful. I typical just not working, we'll just hang out with, play ball, swim in the pool. He loves movies, watch movies, go and get a cheeseburger. He loves his In-N-Out burgers and he spends a lot of time with his partner in crime as /care /by what he /person Damon, who because I work I've had another point of my good fortune. I've had live in care, so I can move freely and work and under. I think it's also been great for James because it gives him again that autonomy. He knows I'm here with lovin's and cuddles all day long and then he goes out and goes the beach, he goes Universal Studios and he's a good life. James, yeah, he's a happy man. I'm glad to say I'm proud of married aches. I just think is magic. To mean I'm by men. I'm proud of both my boys. I've been blessed to have two really fine young men in my charge. I'm not even joke, and every day I just think they're just magic, both of them. I just adore them and I'm just proud of the kind of fellas they are on. I do want to be willy-nilly if anyone's watch this, just like everything my children does perfect, and I just tell them that perfect all the time. Now we have rage and arguments here, we have disagreements and the stuff that happens that's not cool, and I say it's cool and I try and give context why I think it's not cool. But not that regularly, they're just really good dude. I have to really good dude, and yeah, James's I will he works harder than I've ever had to work on myself. Like he really does take James sometimes 90 seconds to take a t-shirt off, but he can take the teachers off with a you sit it out with them. His socks, that's a whole thing. All these things are huge achievements, and so if anything, he also gifts me with the ability to look at the human being and the human body and in life as a marvel, because I see how much he struggles with things that I would never have given a second thought to and that I would just like many of us take for granted. Why would I say I'm most grateful for? I think as steal Jamie Lee Curtis his answer and save my sobriety. In a way, everything is magnified when you have a child with special needs. You're even more aware that your child really needs you around and is gonna need a lot of help and a lot of sports. James was about to and I got when I left Lane when I got sober, and he was a big part of me. Put in the bottle down, big part of it, because I was in no condition to be a friend, never mind the father of a child with such exacting needs. And so if it wasn't for my surprise, I wouldn't be able to be there for James and enjoy in the marvelous of his life and support him in the way that I feel that I can. I don't want to paint a picture either that I'm a perfect out. I may have left, right and center, but at least you have to be present of, so I'm around, but would yeah, it's neck and neck and they're kind of very conjoins. My sobriety and then obviously the two children then I have James and Henry are the two greatest. I would say he prides of I like upright high price of funny one bus. I just am, yeah, they are the aspects of my life and the presences within my life that I'm most grateful for. For years I've wanted to do something in the realm of providing greater opportunities for families who have a child with special needs to receive the support that they deserve to receive and facing the assistance in life in all areas of life, whether it's education, whether it's intervention, therapeutics, social environments that their child can feel like they belong within, and just so that families who have a child with special needs can find world of meaning in a life of connection for their children. I obviously have a certain amount of means, having had a career in film for 20 plus years now, and then we still struggle with finding the kind of support the James's herbs and should rightfully have, particularly up until there are support systems in place across the country, and it varies state to say, but once your child turns 21 they're kind of on their own. All the safeguards that are put in place, all the inclusive programs, special ed classes, that all kind of goes away once your child is 21, and so you're left with a young adult who should be an integrated part of our modern society here, and them very much more often than not is left behind, and so family struggled, and so James of an age now. I suppose the reason why we're Establishing the foundation is the jam. As of an age is 20, he's had extraordinary 20 years. He works incredibly hard to achieve the most quote-unquote menial of things, the most typical of things, benchmarks that we all experience as typical human beings who don't have any cognitive issues or developmental delays. James has fought very hard and to achieve certain benchmarks, and he's done incredible, and he's a really well-adjusted, really happy young man. Is extraordinary. Up, but now we're looking for the right, we're looking towards the rest. Was like, what's the next chapter of James's life look like? Cause my fear being would be, God forbid if and when something happens to James, his mother, or to me, that James would be 30 and 40, and then he would have to go in somewhere into some kind of institute or some kind of residential care, or 30 and 40, and or be nobody there to call over and to take him out and have lunch and all that. So but is very, very few places, and so I want to change that. I want to be a part of with a great team we have behind this foundation already. Particularly Paul Evans out of Chicago, who's been a friend of mine for 15 years. She's just got an engine like you wouldn't believe, and she's on the board as well. So are we. Just over time, I don't know, it's early days like this. The first time I've spoken about it, you don't use I'm speaking about it is I can't, as James, if he wants to do this, I can't ask my son to make a decision called based on knowing James's spirit and knowing what kind of young man he is and the kind of goodness that he has in his heart. A bold as brass, as well cheeky as they come, but he's just a damn fine young man, and hopefully over time, over the years, I hope through funding and through community involvement, we want to take a good look and residential potential for families with young adults who are ready to go right into the world and have a greater sense of community and connection. My initial dream was to create a camp. Something in the vein of what beautiful Paul Newman did, and Paul's Cantha, the hole in the wall gang, that's self-generating as far as budget in finance goes, because he made those lovely pasta sauces and those popcorn, microwave popcorn and things. So I had an idea for a camp that it would open in the spring, and it would operate in the spring, in the summer, in the fall, and then it would close for the winter for repairs. And my mind's eye, I see anywhere between 30 and 80 acres, and there would be freestanding chalets, there would be outdoors cinema screen, there would be or a rec room, there would be a swimming pool outside, there would be a couple of little freestanding wooden massage hearts that the parents could go and they could have a little bit or an aura. Parents of children with special needs, they find it hard to do nice things for themselves, and you can guess why. They feel that they just need to it's so all-encompassing, be impaired to a typical child, but to have a child who has such profound struggles as many of our children do, it's so all-encompassing. Dice if you do something nice yourself, or give yourself massage, or gone a little to Dave road trip with your husband or your wife, you feel like you're being irresponsible. You feel like you're neglecting your child's more than if you had a typical child's. It's just the way it goes, because your child's needs are so pronounced, and because you feel a sense of guilt as well. It's very complicated like that. You brought your child into the world, that somehow it's your fault that your child is born with whatever that particular condition may be, and so the thing would be to bring parents and the children, both the child with special needs and one or two typical children, brothers, sisters, and bring them all to the camp for weeks so that the parents could have a good time. They could get massages, take a splash about, they could sit in a jacuzzi, and their child to be doing activities during the day, and then at night we'd all come together and there be meals shared, and there be cinema zones of the stars and all that kind of stuff. That was initially what I spoke to Paula by one, and Impala was the one that said, well, do you think it's time to do the foundation? So building a summer camp will be a part of the foundation as well. That'd be a big one for me to leave behind, and it's all because the James, it's all in James, his honor. It's terrifying thought that I'll miss the last 40 years or 50 years of his life. Yeah, just because I won't be there to shepherd and to protect, but what would the perfect just in life of connection. And so James, his last 20, 30, 40, 10 years at James, his life, he'll be somewhere where he feels like he belongs, where he feels like he's safe, and where he can garden and watch movies and swim in the pool and go out to the beach and just have a full and meanin' GFUL and connected life, yeah, that of being, that the dream.